Domestically now, we've seen lawmakers late today vote to subpoena the Attorney General for the way her department has handled the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. You saw a handful of Republicans, right, so people in the president's own party, joining Democrats on the House Oversight Committee to vote to bring Pam Bondi in, including Nancy Mace, the congresswoman on the Republican side. Watch this.
I have a lot more questions, and I don't expect to be talking about the stock market, so she better not bring those notes when she comes to the Oversight Committee.
That's a reference to the previous questioning that Bondi went through just some weeks ago in front of a different House committee on this very thing, where you see here survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse stood. They were in the audience. They were wearing shirts that talked about releasing the files. Let me bring in Ryan Nobles, who's live for us on Capitol Hill. So this is interesting. This is a real sort of shot across the bow to the White House, to the Department of Justice, that they're subpoenaing now Pam Bondi. Ryan.
Yeah, and it's really born out of a sense of frustration from the members of Congress who are specifically interested in getting to the bottom of the Epstein controversy, that the Department of Justice is just not complying with the Epstein Transparency Act, which requires them to release every file available to the public as it relates to the Epstein files, and that they're only allowed to redact things if they're part of an ongoing investigation or to protect the identities or personal information of survivors. And members of Congress like Nancy Mace have felt that the Department of Justice has been way too heavy-handed with their redactions, that their redactions are inconsistent, that there are names like Les Wexner's name, for instance, the business partner of Jeffrey Epstein, an alleged co-conspirator. His name was redacted at one point, but then there are examples of survivors whose names have not been redacted. And they feel as though the Department of Justice has just not been forthcoming enough about why certain things have been redacted and how other things have slipped through the cracks. And so they want Pam Bondi to come in front of the committee, ask her about specific files, specific pieces of information, and try and understand this process as to why they have not been able to fully comply with this. And I would imagine as well, Hallie, that there's going to be questions about the fact that there's some 3 million files that the Department of Justice has just said we have in our possession, but we're just not going to release those to the public for whatever reason. So there's a lot of tough questions that Pam Bondi could get from this committee.
When you talk about the files, when you talk about the documents, there's an interesting sort of development today, first reported by the Wall Street Journal, that the Department of Justice now is confirming that it's got like something like 40,000 plus documents that it's sort of re-reviewing, right, that are not out because they're looking at them.
Right. And the Department of Justice said in a statement today that this is part of the process, that they put this stuff out as quickly as they possibly could, that some redactions and errors that shouldn't have happened or should have happened slipped through the cracks. And so therefore, they're going to bring back some stuff. They say the department has not deleted any files from the library. In compliance with the EFTA, our team is working around the clock to address victims' concerns, redact personally identifiable information and any images of a sexual nature. So they did admit there's some close to 50,000 files as of March 2nd that were offline for further review. Now, according to the Wall Street Journal report, among those files, Hallie, were specific allegations against Donald Trump, which, of course, has raised questions because this is not the first time that allegations against Trump have been taken off the website and then eventually put back up. So we'll have to see if those files ever reemerge, Hallie.
And then when you talk about, you know, the questions that they want to ask the Attorney General Pam Bondi, there's also kind of a new crop of people who they're asking to question, including Bill Gates, including Clinton confidant Doug Band, and others, right?
Yeah, and Kathy Rumler, the former Obama White House counsel. And then the other big name is Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, who you and I have talked about a lot. He's agreed to come and testify. Now, what's interesting about this round of you know, the Gates, Rumler, Black, Groff, these are all individuals who right now the committee is asking to come in voluntarily. They're not formal subpoenas yet. And if you're a witness and you're being asked to come in voluntarily, that does give you a degree of negotiating power. You can say, I'll come in, but only if you ask me about X, Y, and Z, or I'll come in under these certain conditions. As soon as it moves to a subpoena, then it becomes more difficult, and the committee is less inclined to meet your needs, especially if you're not a former president of the United States like Bill Clinton. So it'll be interesting to see, especially someone like Bill Gates, who's very powerful, has very good lawyers, how he handles this. So far, he's not responded directly to this request, but I would be very surprised if any of the folks on this list find a way to avoid having to answer questions of this committee.
Ryan Nobles, thank you for being with us. I appreciate that reporting, as you've been the tip of the spear there on the Epstein reporting. Appreciate it.